They said a small act of kindness doesn't change the world, but for a single dad named Daniel Ross, it changed everything. One cold morning, he gave away his own breakfast, his only meal of the day, to a trembling homeless woman outside a diner. He thought he'd never see her again. But weeks later, when two black cars pulled up outside his tiny apartment and a team of lawyers stepped out asking for him, Daniel realized that the woman wasn't who he thought she was, and what happened next would rewrite his entire life. Daniel Ross lived day to day, paycheck to paycheck, heart to heart. A single dad working 2 cleaning jobs, he had mastered the art of stretching every dollar until it begged for mercy. Most mornings he skipped breakfast, so his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. But on this particular morning, he had scraped together enough for a small plate of eggs and toast from the old corner diner, a rare treat he planned to enjoy before heading to work. The sky was wrapped in a dull gray, the kind that made everything feel slower, heavier. Daniel pushed open the diner door, the warm scent of coffee greeting him like an old friend. He sat down, bowed his head slightly, before eating more out of exhaustion than habit, and whispered a quiet, "Thank you," for the simple meal. But before he could take a bite, Daniel glanced out the window and saw a woman thin as a shadow, wrapped in a torn sweater, shivering on the curb. She wasn't holding a sign. She wasn't begging. She just sat there, staring at the ground, as if life had already taken everything she had to give. Something inside Daniel tugged, maybe empathy, maybe memory. He remembered the nights he had slept in his rusty car with a toddler Lily in his arms, trying to make her believe it was an adventure. He remembered hunger clawing at him just like this woman must be feeling now. Without thinking twice, Daniel stood up, picked up his plate, and stepped outside. "Ma'am?" he said gently. The woman lifted her face slowly. Her eyes were sunken, voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," she confessed. Daniel didn't hesitate. He placed the warm plate into her shaking hands. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours." Her eyes filled instantly, tears racing down her cheeks. She covered her mouth, stunned by the unexpected kindness. Why would you give this to me?" she asked. Daniel shrugged, offering a small, tired smile. "Because I know what it feels like." She nodded, unable to speak, and began eating, as if each bite was a lifeline. Daniel stood there until she finished, making sure she felt safe. When she was done, she whispered, a soft, trembling, "Thank you. You saved me." Before he could reply, she stood up and hurried away, leaving only the sound of her footsteps fading into the morning. Daniel walked to work hungry, stomach aching, but heart strangely full. He thought the moment was over. He thought he'd never see her again. He had no idea who she really was or what she would soon do for him. For the next weeks, life continued its exhausting rhythm. Daniel cleaned office floors at night, school hallways in the mornings, and every moment in between was spent being both mom and dad to Lily. They shared jokes over cheap dinners, turned late-night homework into games, and sometimes, when Lily had finally fallen asleep, Daniel would sit alone at the kitchen table worrying about bills he couldn't pay. Still, whenever life felt overwhelming, the memory of that woman's grateful tears would flash in his mind. It reminded him that kindness mattered, even if no one else saw it. What Daniel didn't know was that someone had seen, and she was about to change everything. 3 weeks passed before anything unusual happened. It was a Saturday morning, and Daniel was helping Lily braid her hair while she giggled at his crooked attempts. Suddenly, the sound of engines stopped outside, deep, expensive engines that had no business in their quiet, worn-out neighborhood. Daniel stepped to the window and froze. 2 black SUVs were parked outside his building. 4 people stepped out, 3 sharply dressed lawyers and a woman wearing sunglasses and a heavy coat. She didn't look like she belonged here. Daniel's heartbeat sped up. They must be lost, he told himself. No one rich ever comes here. Then came the knock. A firm, echoing knock that made Lily's eyes widen. Daniel opened the door slowly. "Mr. Daniel Ross?" the tallest lawyer asked. Daniel swallowed. "Yes?" The woman behind them stepped forward, pulling off her sunglasses. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was her, the same woman he gave his breakfast to, but she looked different. Clean, healthy, almost glowing. Her hair neat, her cheeks full, her eyes bright. She seemed like a completely different person. "I'm glad I found you," she said softly. Daniel stood frozen, confused beyond words. You look alive," she finished. "That's because of you." She stepped closer, tears gathering in her eyes again, but this time from overflow, not desperation. "My name is Margaret Hale," she said. The lawyers behind her straightened slightly at the name. "And I am, or was, the sole heiress to the Hale fortune." Daniel blinked. He had heard that name. Everyone had. Hale Investments, Hale Properties, Hale Foundation. It was a family empire. Margaret continued. Voice fragile. "3 months ago, I had a mental breakdown after losing my father. I ran away from the world. I wandered, alone, hungry, lost, and everyone who passed me looked away. Except you. You didn't just give me food. You gave me dignity." Daniel felt his knees weaken. He never imagined the woman he helped carried such a story. She stepped aside, and one lawyer handed Daniel a folder. "This," Margaret said, "is my thank you." Daniel hesitated before opening it, and when he did, his entire world tilted. It was paperwork. Official. Stamped. Sealed. Officialed. 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 Inside was a deed to a fully furnished 3-bedroom house, a trust fund set up in Lily's name, a job offer triple his current pay, and a handwritten letter from Margaret herself. Daniel's voice cracked. I don't understand. Why me? Why me?" Margaret smiled through tears. "Because when I had nothing, you treated me like I was human. And that kind of kindness deserves to come back to you." Lily ran forward and hugged her dad's leg, sensing his trembling. Daniel felt tears slip down his cheeks, tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in years. Margaret placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You helped save me, Daniel. Now let me help save you." That morning, in that tiny apartment filled with peeling paint and second-hand furniture, Daniel Ross realized something he'd forgotten long ago. One act of kindness can change your life, but sometimes it can save it too. And as the lawyers handed him the keys to his new future, he understood that the breakfast he gave away wasn't a loss. It was the beginning of a miracle.